I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
Hey guys, welcome to Eternal Midnight Season 2, Episode 2. In this episode, we're going to be doing a retrospective on my personal favorite movie of all time, Scream. But we're just going to be looking through 1, 2, 3, because 4 in the TV series was the modern take on Scream, I felt. Whereas the original trilogy was very much a product of the 90s and early 2000s. So we're going to go through that and give our thoughts on each one, why we hate 3, why we love 1. So if you like 3, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't. Yeah, I agree. Three has some positives, but it's just too damn convoluted to really make sense.
I think the only positive was that they turned the arc in that movie into a pretty good storyline in this TV series.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a storyline that should have been there in Scream 1. It shouldn't have been there in Scream 3. It's not something you introduce when you're ending off a trilogy.
No.
Um, it's something you sow the seeds for, and you either reveal it in the first movie or you leave hints so when you see it in the third movie, you go, "Oh shit, that makes sense."
Yeah, because 3 had no hints to it at
No,
all.
there was
No lead
nothing.
up. Nothing.
And my biggest problem is between 1 and 3, there was a gap, which was like filler Scream 2.
Mm.
Um, uh, 2
I
I
like
like.
2.
I like it. I watch it in my rewatches. I don't watch 3, so I'll give it that. Um, it's probably more forgettable than any of the others. I mean, I remember it because I watch it more. I think because I watch them 2 or 3 times a year, and I always leave out 3 or I'll forget to watch 4. But 1 and 2, yeah, I mean, I think it's good, but it feels like it's just trying so hard to be the first one.
Yeah.
I think at least 3 and 4 had their own spins, whereas 2 is very much, let's do it again.
Yeah, 2 was a definitely follow in the footsteps of 1. It
Mhm.
tried to introduce It tried to flip it again with Cotton, but it
Yeah,
just part of it worked, part of it kind of worked, kind of didn't, because it's like
yeah.
it started off where it could have become a payoff, but it didn't. It wasn't a payoff.
No, I think Cotton was a character that he should have been left out after Scream 1. I don't think he should have returned. Um, Turning him
I
into a
mean,
celebrity in 3 was kind of weird.
yeah, I mean, he was just there to be a red herring. That's all. I
Yeah.
mean, that was his whole role in part 2 was, oh, is he here to get his revenge?
Yeah, and I hated that because it's so obvious. You know he's not the killer. There's no way. Um,
Well, they were so obvious with doing the, hey, look, it's him, that it was like, well, it's obviously not him then.
yeah, I think that's the problem. I mean, it turns out to be some reporter that you see a few times as well. I didn't like that. Because you can't really predict that. I don't think there's any way you can see that coming. There's going to be someone that goes, "Oh yeah, no, I saw it the whole time when I was watching the movie." I don't think there's a way you can. She's just some random reporter. She wasn't like Gail in that she had a big role. Um,
Yeah, she just kind of showed up every now and again and didn't. Basically, she was just like, Gail, I'm a fangirl.
yeah,
Good, get away from me.
and then the whole reveal, "Oh, I'm Billy's mother, and you killed my son, you bitch." And I mean, I loved Billy and I love Stu, and I think the whole point of Scream One being my favorite, the whole reason, not point, the whole reason it's my favorite, the killers really have a great reveal scene. I think that ties the movie together so well. Scream
Hmm.
Two, it was like, I'm gonna do a whole thing about how movies make people psychos or whatever it was. And then she's like, "Oh, you killed my son, even though he killed all your friends and your mother." And it's just like
Well,
these.
she still blamed Sydney's mom for tearing her family apart, didn't she?
Yeah, but then what's that got to do with Sydney? Her whole thing just came across as, oh, we want to connect it to the first movie rather than having isolated killers that just sort of meet Sydney and go, hey, let's do the thing that happened to her when she was younger.
Well, because that only would have worked for one movie in itself, also, because then it
Yeah,
would have been like, what are the chances this keeps happening to this poor girl?
that's the thing that I had a problem with. Three made sense because it was a surprise third killer. Even though I
Hmm.
hate three, I have to admit.
Oh God.
I
Well,
have to
let's see.
admit.
Let's see. What do we want to do? Do we want to start from the beginning?
Yeah, I
Then we'll
mean,
just work our way through everything, even
yeah,
though we basically just spoiled everything.
I know they're so connected though because I think,
Oh, they
I,
are. Three, they really, as much as three is the worst one, they
mhm.
really do form, in my opinion, a great solid trilogy.
Yeah, I think the problem that I've had is that two and four, as much as I love two and four, and I love them so much more than three. Um, why did it just happens again? Like, really, his mom's a psycho as well? Is that how it works? Because I don't think it's genetic.
Oh.
Um, and then it's sort of like the only way I could have seen Ghostface coming back because it's not like Jason where he's immortal or Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers or whatever. They're not supernatural. It's people who died. I think the only way you can bring it back is a third killer, that
Hmm.
which should have been Dewey in my opinion, but that's fine.
Yeah, I don't get why didn't they go with that?
I think he
It,
became a fan favorite after one and two, and they were like, well, we can keep him around if we do another sequel. Whereas if he's the killer, no.
he did, but the whole point of this franchise, or I mean, the whole point of why Wes Craven started everything was to not necessarily make fun of horror
Mhm.
films and slasher films, but
No,
it was to shine a light on it. And it's like you almost needed to do something like, oh, you love Dewey? In movie three, he's the killer. Sorry.
yeah,
And it's like, get over it, fans.
yeah, that's what I would have loved because you didn't need a Scream 4. If 3 was good, I wouldn't want a 4. But oh
Oh,
well.
four was the we'll talk about four another time, but four was just the most unnecessary. I liked it, but it was just
Mhm.
it was unnecessary.
It modernized Scream, but I think the TV series did it better. Just to put it briefly.
Oh, I
Um, so I think Scream 1, just it's a masterpiece. I give it 5 stars, personally. I don't have any flaws with it. I mean, there's like one or two nitpicks, but they're so insignificant to the movie's overall quality, it doesn't really matter. I think that they chose the killers perfectly, and they did that whole "it's so obviously Stu and Billy that it can't be," and then it is.
hmm
I love that because I think you can do that in your first movie. That's something you can exploit in your first movie. I don't think you can do it in the sequels, but with Stu and Billy, it worked. And they had when he went to prison, and then you have the other killer come in, and they have alibis of their own and stuff, and you're sort of thrown about thinking, who is it? And I love that murder mystery sort of thing that they introduced. There wasn't any of that in Friday the 13th or
no.
Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think
Well, that's
having a
what
murder
set.
mystery and a slasher
Yeah,
really it sets it apart.
exactly. That's what I was about to say. It sets it
Yeah,
apart, whereas it's still a slasher film, but it actually has depth to it. That's why, like,
exactly.
one day when we, do the Friday the 13th, there's really not going to be much to say about each individual movie because it's just different. Jason shows up and kills a bunch of people different ways. So it's like
Yeah,
there's not much there's I love the Friday the 13th movies. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they suck to everyone listening. I'm just saying
they do
there's
suck.
no depth.
No, I
There's no depth to them compared to something like this that does have actual layers to the story that keeps you thinking. And that's what,
yeah,
like, the rewatchability of a Scream, at least for Scream 1 for me, is where can I find the clues? Where can I see this happen, that happened, so I
yeah,
can follow the mystery and connect the dots. Friday the 13th, you rewatch just to see people get killed. So it's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
which one is the smarter franchise? Definitely Scream.
And the whole thing with it being a murder mystery is that you have to write every character. You have to make every character complex. You have to have every character have a certain amount of screen time. Everyone is a suspect, as Randy puts it. So you can't sideline anybody. Everybody has to be in depth. They have to be well written. They have to be a focus of. They have to have their own arc. They have to be a really complex character. Friday the 13th. The problem with that is everyone is just another casualty.
Yep.
Um, so when I think of Friday the
Basically.
13th, they all blend together. I don't know any of the names. I don't know any of the characters. Whereas with Scream, everyone has their own screen time. So you get attached to these characters like Gail, like Dewey, Randy. I mean, I thought all of them were killers on my first viewing, out when I was
Yeah,
a kid.
on my
But
first, I honestly, the first time I saw this, no joke, I thought it was Gail. I thought Gail
yeah,
was killer because I'm like, she's so into this, wanting to get a story that she's setting up her own stories.
yeah, it's very like you could easily think it's Gale, like it was Piper in the series. But I think that originally it may have been Gale in one of the original drafts, perhaps. But yeah, I definitely got that distinct impression from her, and they built that up. She was very detached from reality. It's like all this stuff's going around, and she's there with the camera. The cameraman dies, and she gets a new one right after and starts to cover the story.
Hmm.
Um, you could easily believe it, but I always thought it was Dewey and Billy
Okay.
personally. I never
What
thought
pushed you?
Stu.
What pushed you towards Dewey?
Inside knowledge, he's a policeman, which would
Hmm.
explain evading the killer so long. When he turned up on the crime scene after Billy holding the mask,
Yeah. Okay.
that to me was like, oh shit,
Like too
you
coincidental.
yeah, so it's him turning up right at the same time, Billy turning up right at the same time. I thought both of them are the killer, and what we just saw was two of them at the same time on the scene, just not together.
Well,
Um,
the first time I saw it, I was just going off the prior knowledge of other movies. There's only one.
yeah,
And then as soon as Billy was thrown in jail and Sydney got the phone call, I was like, oh damn, there's actually two of them.
yeah, that's my thing. I was like, okay, so it is Billy. I'm not backing down from that. It's too obvious they're gonna pull a double trick. Um, but at the same time, I think that there's another killer lurking about because of that phone call. To me, that was Dewey. Um,
Which
and I
makes
don't know,
sense.
because I think Dewey wore the same boots as the killer. It was something like that. Either Scream 1 or Scream 2, they started to have people wear the same boots as the killer, or they would wear certain colors. I've watched the audio commentaries once, and they brought stuff up like that. So they definitely tried to make you think it was other people. They didn't just throw them all out there and let you figure it out for yourself. They put little hints in. Um, and
Because
honestly, I think Dewey felt like he was goofy, right? And the whole point of the
Mhm.
killer was they stumbled about. So it could have been him.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what they parodied, obviously, in Scary Movie. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, I like the first Scary Movie. It wasn't bad, but I mean, it did a lot of obvious mocking of Scream. But
It's the whole
personally,
reason we didn't get the mask in the TV series there.
is it really?
Yeah, they have the rights or something.
Oh my God, you gotta be joking.
And the original name of Scream was Scary Movie.
Jeez.
It wasn't always
There's
called Scream.
there was another one that there was actually another one. This is, I don't think you've seen this one. There's another one out there that's a parody, kind of like Scary Movie, that does parody Scream. Personally, I think it's far funnier than Scary Movie ever was. It's called Shriek If You Know What I Did Last Friday the 13th, and they did exactly what you just said about the killer wearing the shoes. Because they show like the boots that the killer wears,
Yeah.
and almost every one of like the quote unquote suspects are wearing those boots. So
Yeah.
it's like one of them is like this massively hot chick, and she's walking around in these black rubber boots the whole movie.
I think that
But
might be a dig at Wes Craven's whole like way of trying to make you think it was the killer.
mhm.
But I
Yeah,
mean personally, I think everyone was a suspect in the movie. Though Randy,
they
uh,
did such a good job of it because it's like Randy easily could have been that guy who just
exactly.
took the movies too seriously and snapped and was like, let's make these things a reality.
The only one that I didn't think could have been a killer was Casey.
Okay.
She to me, she was close to Sydney as a friend. She was caring. They were in the same bedroom, and the phone call happened when she was there. To me,
Mhm.
everything just screamed, "This is her best friend. This is the girl with the big tits that Wes Craven's going to use to make a point and kill."
Mhm.
That's going to be her story. She's, a stereotypical attractive character that's going to die. Um, and I mean, her character was brilliant though. Like the whole point of her
Oh
character
wait,
was the
oh wait,
same
you got the
as
names wrong. Casey was the
oh,
girl at the beginning.
Casey
No,
was
Tatum.
Tatum. Who's Casey? Who am I thinking of?
Casey was Drew Barrymore at the beginning.
Ah, right, my bad. Yeah, no, so Tatum. Yeah, so Tatum's the one with the big tits that he's
Hmm.
making fun of. She has the garage scene which focuses on them. Okay. So the whole point of her character is, look, this is the stereotype in horror movies, and this is what we're gonna do with it. And they did it again with Brooke in the TV series, and that's the sort of girl you'd have as the lead normally. And then
Mhm.
even still, she fought back, and she wasn't the shrieking, screaming girl. And that's what I loved about her character. She
Well,
was the friend.
she had a backbone. She was like, if
Exactly.
shit goes down, I'm here to back you up. You're my friend. I'm gonna help you. So it's like
Yeah.
she wasn't a coward who would just run away screaming or the ditzy, ah, my boyfriend cheats on me, but it's okay.
Exactly. And I think when she fought back against the killer, that was such a great moment. That's one of my nitpicks in the movie. Is she goes from badass to idiotic in the span of like 2 seconds.
Hmm.
That's the only nitpick I have really. Because personally, I think she got that far. She probably could have just taken him on. Because I think the whole thing is with someone who has a weapon, you want to get as close as possible. And
Yeah.
I think she got close to doing stuff like that. She was throwing balls off him, fighting back. And I mean, she could have smashed a bottle and went after him. I mean, there was so many opportunities there to take him on. So I'm kind of sad she didn't, but at the same
I
time, her
almost
character was
I
brilliant.
almost wish they'd let her live. Like
Well,
kind of like what they did with Randy. You thought she was dead, but she wasn't.
see, that's the thing. I think a lot of these things that they wish they'd done in retrospect happened in the TV series anyway, like with Brooke surviving,
Hmm.
because Brooke is basically tame. Um,
God, Brooke surviving stunned me because I mean,
yeah,
we'll cover it more when we get to the TV series. I honestly think that girl had it the worst of every character almost in the entire franchise.
probably. 'Cause, I mean, Sydney went through some shit, but everyone that she was close to survived at the end of the day.
Mm.
Um, the only one that didn't really was Noah. Not Noah. Oh, shit. Randy. Randy though, oh, I loved him. He was so good in Scream One. I think having a character within the movie that is a film buff, that's ingenious.
Hmm.
Because if you're playing on the meta humor stuff, you need a character that is well versed in the genre that you're poking fun at. And I think Wes Craven knew that, and he did that really well with Randy, who worked at a film store, who loved film. He put Halloween on at the end. That was a brilliant moment as well.
Well, it was cool because it was like instead of getting these like random pointless exposition dumps of here fill the audience in on it, like you said, you've got this film buff who loves horror films who all he wants to do is walk around spouting his wisdom and his thoughts
Yeah,
on horror films. So he's doing two things at once. He's building up his character as a film buff, but he's also filling the audience in on things to pay attention to.
exactly. And I think the whole reason people love him so much is how relatable he is. I think a huge part of Scream that people love is their connection to the movie. That it's like, yeah, we know the horror movies. We know, the tropes. We know everything about them just as much as you do. It's like speaks to horror buffs, and so it's got a cult following because of that. And I think a lot of people look at Randy and they see themselves in him and his love for movies, his love for horror. I think that's what makes him such a likable character. And then having him die in Scream 2 was so gut wrenching. I don't think a death in Scream has hit me as hard as Randy.
Yeah, because and his was when we hit two we'll talk more, but it was like it was so well set up that
Oh
whole
yeah.
scene, everything, because you just that was one of those deaths in the movie you just were not expecting it.
No, I mean, Randy in the first film, he had some really great moments. He had some iconic moments. And I think at the end of the movie, having him as a character around definitely helps set up the whole playing of Halloween. Poor taste, by the way, when there's a serial killer on the loose. But I think that moment where he sat on the sofa saying behind you," and the killer's behind him, and then
Hmm.
you've got the camera guy watching it and going, behind you," and then really the killer's behind him. That
Yep.
was a brilliant moment. That
Yeah,
was
because
so iconic.
it was like a 30-second delay, wasn't
Yeah, so you've got a guy saying behind you to a guy saying behind you. I
it?
love that. And then just Sydney's reaction is priceless because she's there like, oh shit,
And the music from Halloween playing was also what was awesome, I thought. I mean, you could call
nostalgia.
it almost robbing the music, I guess, from what it was intended for in Halloween. But I
Yeah,
thought it was cool how it was like the sound of the music of Scream was the music playing on a television that was playing Halloween. I thought that was
yeah.
cool.
See, I loved it because I saw Scream before I ever saw Halloween because I saw Scream when I was quite young. Being a 2000s baby, it came out before I was born. So I saw Scream before Halloween, and now when I see Halloween, I get nostalgia for Scream. It's meant to be the other way, but I mean, I absolutely
Right.
love that. And I think a huge thing as well is the more horror you watch, the more references you'll understand in Scream.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always that sort of point where you go, oh, that's what that meant. I get it now. Like when they were, I think they mentioned prom night at some point.
I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah, so there's a lot of moments where in the movie I'll either have gone off and watched movies independently without, consciously thinking, oh, they mentioned it in Scream. Then I'll go back and rewatch Scream and I'll be like, holy shit, I get that now. Or it'll give me plenty of other movies that I then want to go and watch. So it's definitely a love letter to horror fans as a movie.
Definitely, because it's cool because it's like how to put it the right words. It doesn't feel like Wes Craven was making a parody.
No.
It felt more like he was saying, here's all these 80s films. They all did, for the most part, they all did the same thing. I am going to do the same thing, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And it worked where it was like when the word meta was basically created from this film.
Hmm.
It was, you're going meta with it. You're taking it, you're acknowledging it, but he took it in a serious tone. Like, when they made Scary Movie, they took it the opposite. They were parodying something just for laughs, whereas he was parodying something for seriousness, and he wound up telling a great story out of it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's Scream. That's a really funny comedy. That's really, I laughed when I watched that." To me, it's always been one of the scariest horror movies. It's not in the sense that, I'm terrified because it's inherently scary. I don't think there's many moments where I'm freaked out. It's just the premise itself. A serial killer, someone that snapping and wearing a mask and lurking about at night and playing with their phone to kill you and lure you in, and there's that sort of sense of safety crushed by that.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I think
it's not a Michael Myers, it's not a
no,
Freddy Krueger, it's not a Jason Voorhees. It's someone you don't know who is a human. Like when she kicked it, like when she, hit him with the door, he groaned and got knocked down. He
yeah,
didn't like, punch a hole through the door or something like that. So it's like
no,
this is
it's
a
so
real,
believable.
yeah, it's a human being who's made you his target and he's coming after you. And there's certain 80s there's certain other horror films that scare me in that sense.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them another time, but it's like, yeah, it's creepy. It's, like at the beginning, the phone call he was doing with Casey was, I mean, that would terrify me.
Oh yeah, no, if someone called you up in the middle of the night when you're home alone and you're about to
Oh,
watch a horror movie and they sort of go, "Oh, what's your favorite scary movie? Haha, I'm outside your house and I'm gonna kill you." You'd be freaked out, and I think that whole introduction was so terrifying, and it's always got to me.
and
Um,
especially just, that scene where she was like, she had her throat slashed and she was
yeah.
trying to call out for her parents and he just drags her off. I was like, damn.
And people say it's a comedic movie, and honestly, I don't understand because that whole introduction with Drew Barrymore.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely hilarious. I was laughing my
I
ass
know.
off the whole time. It was so funny watching this terrified girl
What
screaming for
got
her
me as
parents.
what got me as a kid was her dying. What gets me now is her mother's reaction,
Oh. Well,
because that's the
and
hard
what
part.
another thing I liked about it is, like you were saying with like callbacks to other horror films, that was a callback to Psycho. She was
Yeah.
all over, and like you said, you obviously weren't, around when it first came out. She was, I mean, she's right on the front of the poster.
Oh yeah, Drew Barrymore. The whole thing, like if you listen to the commentaries, is they wanted to sort of make everyone think, oh, Drew Barrymore was going to be the lead girl, and then 180 that, and you'd have Sydney introduced, and you just kill the lead girl straight off in the introduction. You get rid of her boyfriend that's a jock. You go through all these stereotypes, and I think it subverted expectations in such a good way
Definitely.
because you're introduced and you're like, how's she going to get out of this? And it ends with her hanging in a tree with her throat slit.
Mm-hmm.
The only
Yeah,
thing that's the second nitpick I have of the movie, and there's only two I have. How did they get her up that tree so fast? I think you've got to think it's three killers, but then did Roman take part in Scream One?
oh,
And even then,
oh God, his speech was so damn convoluted in 3 though that it's almost like, it would have. I think it would have been. It's almost one of those like quote unquote plot holes that I guess could be filled. Like maybe he was. Maybe that was. I mean, that was their first kill. Maybe he
mm,
was the one who did it, and he was like, look how easy it is to kill or something like that. And
no,
they
that
just.
wasn't their first kill. It was her mother.
Oh, that. Well. Oh, that's right. Okay, maybe he was there then. Maybe he was like, okay, here's how we're gonna terrorize the town or some shit. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think I've always thought there was three killers. Even before I saw Scream 3, I thought there was three killers. I was just hoping it would be Dewey because Dewey in the first one definitely felt like he could have been, because the whole point was, I think most of the times you saw a goofy killer, you were meant to think, oh, that's Stu. And when it was a more calm, collected, sort of psychotic Jason-looking killer, you were meant to think that's Billy.
Yeah.
Um, but it's very possible that the goofy killers could have been Dewey and Stu. And I think
Mhm.
throwing Roman in the mix, there was no personality there that he would have fit, because
No.
the
Well,
way
I
he
think
was in Scream 3 wasn't like either of them.
no. I think if Roman was there, he might have just been there at the beginning of their spree and then he left because
Yeah,
I don't think Three Killers would have made sense the whole movie, especially
no,
with what he was doing. I mean, the problem was we never really went into Roman's backstory of three, so we knew he was a director,
yeah.
but we didn't know where he was at that point in time. Was he just like a stagehand? Was he a production assistant? What was he at that time frame that he could get there and do something without being noticed that he was gone? Maybe.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think he might have been there for the mother's kill, and then he might have been there for Casey. Um, but I don't think he was there after. I don't see that happening. But I
He
think
would have
if it
had no
was
reason.
no, but if it was Dewey, it would have made a lot more sense because he's got the inside knowledge of the PD. He knows, he could easily frame Cotton because he knows what the police are like. He knows how to manipulate them.
Hmm.
He's got the goofy side that Stu had, and he's sort of like he's intelligent, but he hides it well. So I don't think anyone could really go, oh, he's a mastermind behind all this. But underneath that sort of layer, there is a lot of intelligence behind that. You see a lot in Scream 4, but
Hmm.
so I think he would have been a perfect candidate. And I think in Scream 1, I didn't trust Dewey. I still watching it back. I think I'm really uneasy around him. There's all these killings going on, and all he's fascinated about is getting with Gale.
I think that's why they parodied it in Scary Movie, where
Yeah.
they basically made him out like he was, like retarded. But then at the end, he wasn't, and he was behind the whole thing. I mean, obviously they just played that up for laughs.
Hmm.
Gets in a car, drives off with the chick, but it's like, um, so it just does make me wonder in an alternate universe where when Wes Craven was getting Scream 1 together and Kevin Williamson was the writer, I think,
Hmm.
when they were getting it together, um, what if they had had Dewey be Stu's role instead? How different would the franchise be?
So I think rather than taking Stu's role, they would have set him up to be revealed in another movie.
Hmm.
I couldn't see Stu being replaced because he's so close to Billy, and there is a
So like, you'd want to see it where there were three killers and one of
uh
them got away.
yeah, basically. I think those two. I think
I
that would
think
have
they
helped
just
Dewey's plan as well.
I think if in retrospect, if Craven had done that, that would have been cool. I think at the time he just wasn't sure how audiences would respond, so he didn't. Because he was like,
Yeah,
if they don't like it, I don't want to end it on a cliffhanger if we're never going to get a sequel.
exactly. So I think I would have kept Stu because him and Billy had such a brilliant
No,
relationship and chemistry.
their chemistry was
Oh yeah.
so funny at the end in the kitchen.
There is a lot of theories going around that those two were sort of behind the scene lovers. I buy into that. They felt like it.
No, another thing parodied in Scary Movie.
Oh really? I seen it once and I was too young
Oh,
to
it,
remember it.
it was it was really it was really stupid. One of the like one was gay, one wasn't. Even though the one who was like gay the whole movie admitted he wasn't gay. It was really stupid.
So I could see them being behind the scenes, together. Um, Billy, the fact that he lost all compassion in the end and the mask,
Oh,
both
he went nuts.
figuratively and literally, the mask just sort of came off. That was a brilliant moment. The only problem I had is how stupid they were, but then again, they're high school kids. It made sense.
Well, and it was and that's the perfect part of the parody that still makes me laugh when you think about it is they did the traditional bad guy. We're revealing our whole plan right here.
Yeah,
Anyone
yeah,
could be standing right outside the window listening to the whole thing.
exactly. I think what they should have done, but I mean, I forgive it. It's not like a nitpick, as in it's a problem with the movie because they're high schoolers and they're basing all off
Exactly.
movies. They want to relish in this. They want to, go, we beat you, we've manipulated you, we defeated you. But stabbing each other in front of her,
That was like they that I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I guess it was more believable than what what's her face did in Scream 4 when she just beat the shit out of herself.
yeah, Scream 4
But
got a little wacky at the end.
but it just got so twisted when it's like when Billy just went nuts and just
Oh yeah,
started gutting Stu. It was like, and he's just sitting there and he's just like bleeding out the mouth. I'm like,
the
dude, at this
acting.
point it doesn't matter. You're going to die at this point, no matter what.
Yeah. See, the thing is that Billy was terrifying in that scene. He still freaks me out watching it. If I'm home alone and it's nighttime and it's dark and I'm watching Scream, I get freaked out more than any other movie, especially during that moment because Stu goes from. 'Cause Stu was scary before that, and then he became so vulnerable and broken,
Hmm.
and that just highlighted how terrifying Billy was. And then you get Matthew Lillard's improvised line where he my mom's gonna be so mad at me. I
I'm
love that.
standing here dying, man.
I loved
He
him.
was
I
a
mean,
he is. You know what? I don't care what people say. I genuinely think he's a pretty underrated actor.
Matthew Lillard's phenomenal.
He always makes me laugh. Anything he does.
See, I think the problem with Scream, it had the Jessica Jones problem. It handled it a lot better than they did, though. Where season two of the second movie was always going to be weaker because the first one had the best villain they could possibly have
Mhm.
had. You had Tennant, and then you had for Scream, you had Matthew Lillard and whoever played Billy. I forget his name, like Screet or something.
Skeet
Um,
Ulrich.
yeah, that's the guy.
Yep.
So no matter what, the second one, and coincidentally, Jessica Jones and Scream 2 had the villain as the mother. Um, but I don't think you can live up to that after the first one. So the second one
The
was
second.
doomed in that regard.
The, well, let's see. Do we have anything else to say about the first one other than we both love it?
It's a masterpiece, and it's so underrated and needs more love.
Definitely. So moving on to the second one, building off what you were just saying, I
Yeah,
think what they were going for with the killer being revealed that it was Billy's mother, I think they were doing a reverse Jason
yeah, they were.
Voorhees.
Um,
Definitely.
yeah, that's what it was meant to be. But
Yeah.
you didn't know the mother. Like the whole thing I loved about
Right.
Scream 1 is that every single character was complex. Every single character had enough screen time. You had so many options. You had to figure out which one it was, and then you were wrong or you were right, and you had that feeling at the end, like, oh, I get it, or oh, I figured it out. And with Scream 2, there wasn't any of that. She was just some random reporter that occasionally popped up, and maybe a few people got it. I didn't. I don't know anyone that did. I don't know how you could have, because she was so insignificant. Maybe if you predicted, oh, the person that you see occasionally, but for me, I just think the fact that it was harder to predict in that
It,
sense,
I
it
think
felt cheap.
a cool thing that they could have done, obviously not knowing you're going to get a sequel
Yeah,
makes this not possible. But it's almost like if it almost makes you wonder, like, what if there'd been like a scene where they'd been at, we'll just say Billy's house, and
yeah,
he'd done a walk by, and it was just a like a blink and you miss it moment where it was like a picture of Billy and his mother, and they had that actress, and it was like then you can go back and say, look at the first one, you'll see it, it was right there.
yeah.
But
I mean,
obviously, again, not knowing you're going to get a sequel, you can't set something like that up.
no, I think my biggest problem with her though was her accomplice. They didn't have chemistry. They didn't have
Oh,
any
he
personality together. His
he didn't make sense.
No, I think the whole thing was, oh, I found this guy in the deep web who lived in our area, and he just happened to want to go on a killing rampage with me. Like, fuck off. The whole point of Scream 1 was it was believable, and I love Scream 2 up until the reveal, and that's the problem with it for me. I love Scream 1 because of the reveal, but
Hmm.
with 2 it's the opposite. I think everything before it was solid, and then you have the whole this asshole that felt like a mock Billy, and Kieran in the TV series felt like Billy in a really good way. This guy just felt like a sort of parody
He
of Billy.
yeah, he felt just more like a stock psychopath who was just like,
Yeah,
I get off killing people, and I met her online, and she's my surrogate mother now, and it's like,
yeah.
oh,
I
okay.
think you could have just had her killing, and it would have been more convincing. They didn't need to.
I think they needed him more for the muscle. because I couldn't
True.
believe her doing half the physical stuff that Ghostface could have done.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
I want to think she's the one who killed Randy, but I couldn't. I don't know. I could see Randy overpowering her. I mean, she wasn't that big of a woman.
isn't that what they said? Like, because he started to insult Billy, she took it to heart. Like,
Yeah,
that's how I
yeah,
interpreted this whole
right.
scene. I mean, I don't know. Like my girlfriend's short. She doesn't look that strong, but she really is. So I don't know. Maybe the mother's the same sort of thing. I
Yeah.
mean, my mother's like that. She's strong as shit, but she's like you underestimate them because of their size. I think it's possible. It's
I think
definitely
I,
believable.
I personally think the biggest thing that bogs this movie down is how it opens. I think the
Yeah.
intro is so good and
Oh,
it's
I love it.
so cool at the movie theater with it just being this giant meta scene of them watching a movie based around the events of the first movie. And then I think it's almost like they blew their load at the beginning of the film and they just didn't really have much to follow up with. I mean, you got a few good one-liners from Randy here and there.
He
They
died too
basically
soon.
Oh, definitely. They ripped Gail and Dewey apart so they could reset their relationship again,
Yeah.
which I got to give it at least in this one and at least in 1 and 2, Gail is that, strong, independent
Yeah.
reporter woman. She's going to get out and get the story. By the
Yeah.
time we get to 3, she's just screaming, "Dewey, help me! Dewey, please help me!" And it's like, "What? Who are you?"
That's the thing I
So,
loved about Scream is how the women were always strong and they fought back. I absolutely love that, and I think yeah they stripped that in through
but
a little
it's
too
just
much.
the intro at the movie theater scene. Oh my God, that was awesome. I love watching that part.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the killer comes back in his clothes and murders his wife
Hmm.
or girlfriend, whatever it was, and the stabbing him through the bathroom stall. I don't know. I watched this as a kid and I have a phobia of bathrooms, public bathrooms still. Maybe it comes from this movie. I'm not sure, but honestly, that scene terrified me as a kid. Still does. Um, But then right after you've got Tatum 2.0, you've got Buffy the Vampire Slayer being a generic girl.
Why was she even there?
I don't know. I mean,
I've always wondered that. I was like, why? I get why she was in it. I guess because they connected her name Cece to somebody from the first one, and they're like, oh look, the killers are starting again.
oh yeah,
But it was like, why Sarah Michelle Gellar then? What was the
yeah,
point in getting such a big female popular name of the time just to why didn't you make her the best friend?
yeah. I would have preferred that. I mean, you see her as Buffy, then you see her as that, and it's. But then again, she played Daphne, so you never know.
I think they were just trying to do oh look, the hot blonde Sarah Michelle Gellar's here, she's gonna survive and then kill her, but it wasn't as effective because you're never gonna be able to top Drew Barrymore from the first one.
No, I think the whole problem with the second one is it just felt like they were doing the first one again. And it's not as bad as three, but it's more forgettable because it just feels like a rehash. And it's really well made in most parts of it, I'd say, but the
Would
fact that
you
it
let's
feels
see.
so similar to one drags
What'd
it
you
down.
think of that? What'd you think of that song and dance number?
No. There were
That was
parts
so. Why was that there?
I like the concept, I just don't think it was well executed.
No, it wasn't.
Like I mean Sydney, I feel bad for her though.
Oh,
All the shit she has to go through. I'm just glad they didn't make it the boyfriend again.
yeah.
That's from the with the Halloween special. It was just right after her boyfriend, another boyfriend. So to see it, they didn't do that again was nice, but at the same time, the mother thing, as much as I love the whole, oh, it's Friday the 13th in reverse, um, she wasn't that convincing.
They almost
Maybe it's the actress. I don't know.
they almost in retrospect they almost should have I guess okay, you can keep the mother if you want,
Yeah,
but then Cotton should have been the second killer.
yeah. I think the mother because she's angry that Billy, was killed.
Yeah.
Cotton because he's fueled by, oh, I want some revenge.
Yeah,
Um,
that would have worked more than the guy who it was. His name keep I don't it, that's
I don't even remember. I know it is
oh
Billy's
god.
mom and her deep web toy boy.
Yeah. I like the way you phrased it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
It just didn't. Okay, it's almost the same as Roman.
mhm.
The character worked, but the initial reveal didn't. And
Yeah.
Roman's, when we get to three, I'll explain exactly why Roman's was worse. But hers just, it was just, oh, that weird reporter from earlier. I'm Billy's mother.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
well, I never knew you were Billy's mother, so why am I supposed
exactly.
to feel a connection to you?
I think what should have happened is right. So like in Scream One, you know Billy and Stu, they're connected, their boyfriends to two of the main girls. You know Randy because he's a big character. He's the movie guy, so he's got a connection that you can maybe think he's the killer. Dewey's a bit of a fumbly guy. You know, he's a klutz, and he's got connections to the police. It could be him. All these characters have something. You could go, oh, it could be them. Scream 2, nothing. I mean, you've got the boyfriend. Maybe he's just another psycho who's like, I'm gonna be the second Billy. You've got some random guy that's a little bit weird. You've got Randy who dies anyway. You've got Dewey who's probably not going to be the killer now.
Well,
You got
we didn't even bring that up. He couldn't because when he got stabbed in the back in the first one, he like had kind of like a gimp going on.
oh yeah,
Yeah, like remember his arm? He kind of like had it out the whole time, like something was wrong with his
yeah,
spine, so something was wrong with his nerves. So it's almost like, I mean, that could have been a good twist that he was faking it though.
yeah. I mean, I don't think I would have seen them doing a reveal like, oh, there's a third killer in the sequel though. That's the thing. I don't think Wes Craven thought that far ahead yet. Maybe he did, and he just wanted to save it for the end of the trilogy. But I mean, I think in the second one it was going to be someone from the first one, but there was nobody from the first one that was eligible at that
There
point.
was nobody left.
Yeah, so the problem was that they didn't set up a sequel, and so in doing a sequel, it just didn't work unless it was going to be all new characters. But none of the all new characters felt like they could be the killer either.
And
So
I
you
think,
got this
yeah,
convoluted mess where you couldn't really, I mean, you could predict it. I know people predicted the guy, but
he was
it's
obvious because he
it was
just,
yeah. But
but
my
and
whole thing was he's obvious, but so was Billy. Are they really going to do it a second time?
That's what I mean. But because he was such a like a shallow character, it almost didn't really matter because it was just like he didn't really have that much growth and he was just kind of a stereotypical guy who was there.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing would have been if they'd actually went ahead and said either Cotton or Dewey were the third killer, and Cotton was the one that killed her mother, and it you know he was guilty all along. Gale was actually wrong, and you know that would have been a pretty good moment.
Hmm.
Him or Dewey would have fit, and then they could have done the whole third killer reveal in the second movie. He could have recruited Billy's mom and been like, "Look, these guys killed," and without telling her the whole story, and maybe he betrays her in the final act, and he kills her, and then he says to Sydney his whole monologue.
Hmm.
But I think the way they did it, as much as I do love Scream 2, and I have to reiterate that because 3 is the one I hate, I'd give Scream 2 a nice juicy 4 stars. It
Hmm.
just it wasn't as complex as the first
Well,
one.
there was actually one scene that I just remembered did that could have that was I think very cleverly shot that was leaning towards the boyfriend being the killer was when Sydney was at that party and the phone rang, she answered it, killer was talking to her and he was like, I'll be seeing you soon, and she's like, why don't you show your fucking face, you coward? And
Yeah.
then you actually hear the killer's voice, my pleasure, pans over, and the last time we saw the door, it was open. Now the door is shut, and the killer is standing there with the knife charging at her.
Oh
So
yeah.
I thought that was actually a really smart scene. That was just like, is it the boyfriend? Because he was right there.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things they tried to do felt too on the nose to make you think it was someone, and it was just so it wasn't as clever as Billy and Stu, I don't think.
No,
Because
nothing can top that.
no, because Stu's whole you know, how to gut, that was a brilliant moment. Billy's just creepy demeanor and his whole rapey attitude. Why are you saying no to me? Why are you such a prude? You've been like this since your mother died. You could sort of they felt like they were real sociopaths. You could believe that they were who they were. In this one, though, it was like, let's give everybody a little trait of serial killer, and we'll
Hmm.
just
Like every
throw them
well,
all
think
out there.
about it. Look at every way Cotton tried to like speak to Sydney. It
Yeah.
was, hey, come around this corner, talk to me. It's like
Yeah.
if you're someone who just got let go and were proven innocent that you were not a murderer, maybe you shouldn't act like one.
No, that's the thing that everyone did, and you couldn't really. definitively say, oh, it has to be this guy. I mean, I like that there's a little bit of doubt. There wasn't Scream 1 anyway, but in this one, it was just sort of no one was that well written, except for Sydney, Dewey, and Gale. But they were the main, well, Randy, but he died really quickly.
Yep.
So I think what you should have seen is Billy's mother introduced in the first act as Billy's mother, and then you've sort of got to go, would his mother do this again? Would she? Would she really do this? Have her be really apologetic, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, my son was a monster. I'm so, you know." But
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. It's,
Mm.
I'm sorry for what he did. I thought I raised him better, blah, blah, blah.
yeah, and then at the end, it's like, you didn't have to kill him, you fuck. And then, all that stuff. But
It would
I
have
don't
worked. Because,
know.
like you said, it's because she was not an established character outside of just an annoying wannabe local reporter who was
Mhm.
annoying Gail every time we saw her.
She felt like a Gale rehash with less screen time, less importance, worse writing, and a worse actress behind her.
And was suddenly thrust forward as the mastermind behind the entire movie.
That was what was so jarring because I was like, oh, who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Pulls off the mask, and I'm like, who's that?
Oh, that random reporter? Okay.
I'm like, I sort of
What?
recognize that, and then she's like, hey, I've been here all along. Nice to see you. And I'm like, oh,
Oh, yeah, you have been. Okay.
yeah, I forgot you existed until this very moment, but it's nice to see you again. Please don't kill Sydney. Scream 3, though. Let's move on to
Oh,
the worst one.
Christ, what is there to? Oh, okay. I'll start off by saying
One star.
I.
It goes
Okay,
5, 4,
I
1.
I like. Okay, I enjoy the movie as a whole. But when it comes to all four Screams and including the TV shows, aside from the Halloween special,
Yeah.
it is the worst.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is easily the worst. No, there's no questions, no debates on that one.
Yeah,
But
I
there's
mean,
there's elements of 3 that I like. They just were not executed well. And the main problem is just, oh God, the biggest thing I think that hindered this movie truly was it was the voice changer. That was
'cause
just was so like sci-fi at that point. I'm like, you were trying to be realistic. How do you have a machine that can sample anyone's voice that you need at that exact moment?
yeah, so as I said before, Scream 1 I loved because it felt real. That terrifies me. I'm not a fan of paranormal because I'm completely atheist. I don't believe in ghosts, spirits, souls, or anything, and I don't have anything against people that do, but because I don't believe it, it doesn't scare me because I don't think it can happen. I don't think I watch The Exorcist and I'll go, oh, a demon might possess me. That's terrifying. I look at that and I'm like, holy shit, that's scary because of the acting and the story itself. But then I look at a serial killer and I'm like, that's something that could happen to me. That's kind of creepy. And then you strip that serial killer down and you turn them into more paranormal, sort of supernatural character. You got that with Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, and all them. Um, so I
No,
really
not scary at all.
exactly.
Yeah, I guess if you were around in the 70s and 80s and Jason, Freddy, and Michael scared you, I mean, cool, but I mean,
They weren't scary,
not,
but
even when I was a kid and even when I was younger in the 90s and I watched some of them, they never scared me. I was never
as a
scared
kid
of
they
them.
didn't scare me. Jeepers Creepers never scared me. Scream did because it's the idea that someone calls you in the middle of the night, they taunt you, and then you get a knock on your door, and there's a guy in a mask. Sorry, with this guy in a mask with a knife standing there, and it's just sort of,
It's unnerving
you
because
would
it
freak
makes you
out.
think this could happen to me.
Exactly, but with paranormal, I don't think it can because of my beliefs. So when I see Scream, that gets to me. And then you get the sci-fi elements, and that to me was the equivalent of making Jason Voorhees immortal, making Michael Myers borderline immortal. I don't know if he is. I haven't seen enough of them. Um, so
Basically.
yeah, so to me it was like,
Well, the problem was this. This was another movie where you needed 2 killers, but
mhm.
they only had one.
Yeah, I think
This one didn't make sense
Scream 2 could have had one killer and you would have believed it.
easily.
Scream 3 though it needed to. But then again, who's Roman going to rope in? Because you killed Stu and Billy. There were rumors, and I'm not sure because the last time I read this was a few years ago, that Stu was going to be working behind bars before the Roman story.
Huh.
I think that would have worked better. I think it's rumored, but then they sort of set that up in the TV series and they took elements of everything that was scrapped and done poorly in the movies.
Mhm.
So Kieran was behind bars, and I think they alluded to it in the series, but then they did the whole Halloween special and ruined it.
Oh,
But I think that would have been a more convincing story than Roman, because the whole your mother didn't accept me and I'm your half brother and I'm gonna kill everyone you love and you because of the actions of your parents.
it was so. That was the problem. Okay, we'll just jump right to the end and then we can go over some more stuff in the middle.
Mm,
Okay, first off, he wore glasses the entire movie and his hair
mhm.
one way. And then when he unmasked, he has no glasses and he looked completely different. First time I watched it, I literally was like, who is this?
Yeah,
Who
I
is
felt
this
that.
guy?
But that's the problem with Scream 3 is the
Yeah.
characters got even more two-dimensional. So when he pulled the
And there
mask
were
off,
two there were too many characters in the movie
uh
too.
as soon as he pulled his mask off and he was trying to be this complex three-dimensional villain, I was sort of like, really? You've been so poorly written up to this point. I don't really care who you are.
Hmm.
You can't
I
just suddenly pull out. And the whole thing in Scream 1, Billy said motives are boring. That's not what's scary anymore. People don't like motives. They like it when the killer's just killing. So you get this guy who's got this complex motive and he bleeds that into Scream 1. That takes away from Scream 1 for me, which is why I don't rewatch it, because it sort of detracts from Billy and Stu, I feel.
yeah,
Roman, I
it
can't see him being with
retroactively
them.
it retroactively changed the meaning behind one.
Exactly. That's why I don't take it into the story anymore. I think the modulator basically made it so I don't see it as a part of the continuity myself in my own headcanon. I like to pretend it never happened. Scream 1, though, I mean, you can see Billy and Stu doing these killings. You can see them just snapping. Billy hasn't been getting laid. He wants to get to Sydney. He kills her mother. Stu, he's, peer pressure, whatever. Um, but Roman saying, "Oh, I manipulated both of them." Can you see Billy being manipulated like that?
No, not by Roman.
Because
Not
Billy is a
not
lot more strong-willed and minded than
oh
Stu was.
easily. And Roman also is just I guess I get his motive. I can get it.
Hmm.
He was a bastard son born to a woman he never met, and when he tried to seek her out, she was like, "You remind me of a past that I don't want to remember. Get the hell out of here."
Yeah.
I can see his motive,
But
but
then
he just
imagine if
it's like
Billy Batson did that.
but that's what I mean. It's just like, no, I get that.
Hmm.
I'm on your side. I'm just saying it's like I can see it. Well, then again, he was born in Hollywood. God knows what orphanages are like out
True.
there. But maybe it was just. But I guess it just comes down to the person who you've grown up to be. And it just can almost confuses me. It's like, why did you set up that whole convoluted bullshit then? Why didn't you just kill her yourself?
And why did he wait so long to get back at her?
Yeah, well, and
It
yeah,
failed the first time when he went away. He didn't come up with another convoluted plan. He just sort of waited and then went after her himself. Why didn't he just do it right off the bat after Scream 1?
yeah, why didn't he just literally? She tells him go away, go to the local Walmart, buy a gun, go back, shoot her in the head, get on a bus and leave.
Yeah, like there was so much they could have done. I felt like the whole adding him in the third movie, it was too late to do that story. In the TV series, when they do it with Piper, who's a mix of Gale and Roman, they do it right off the bat in series one. And there
Hmm.
is a second killer. We just meet them in two separate occasions, which is how you should do it.
The
Because I
TV
don't.
series got so many things right.
It was basically everything Scream did wrong fixed, and they did it
Hmm.
so fantastically.
I
And
think the biggest thing with Roman that I did enjoy also though during his reveal
mhm,
was I did enjoy watching him. He pulls the mask off.
mhm.
He's very calm in his explanation of everything. And then it almost seemed like the more Sydney was questioning him, he was just getting more and more just enraged and pissed off. And he just kept building and building until both of them just like screamed, "Fuck you," and just dove at each other and just basically started their brother sister brawl.
Yeah, I mean it's so campy, and I think, like you said, Scream 3 was bad, but that kind of fits into Scream's trope. I
Hmm.
mean, it feels like any horror trilogy, which I guess fits into the meta humor. The
That's what
first one's
happens.
the
They
best.
start out
Yeah.
serious and they divulge into crazy campiness.
So the first one's really good. Second one's an imitation. Third one goes too far paranormal and does some dumb shit. and it
And
gets
then
really
the fourth
campy.
tries to fix things by going back to more serious.
Yeah, exactly. And then the
But
fourth got really silly, but
but the
I
rest of Scream 3 just to me, I'm not gonna lie, just it's aside from Gail being a complete just deballed awesome woman that she was in 1 and 2
mhm.
and just turning into this whimpering just Dewey help me. Honestly there's
Or
just
having
not much.
visions.
Oh god.
She
There
goes through it twice and she has visions, and then she fights back and it's gone.
just was I mean I honestly I'm not gonna lie, I don't really remember much of Scream 3 aside from
Wait, were those
Jay and the
visions
Silent
or were those?
Bob. Oh God, I don't remember the last time I even watched Scream 3.
It's been so long.
I just really don't remember nothing about it. Okay, you want to know the biggest thing that stood out? Jay and Silent Bob showing up.
Yeah,
Other than that, honest to God, I don't remember anything about it.
I remember they were on a film studio. That was
Yeah,
kind of cool.
they were filming a movie that was like Stab 3 or 4
Uh-huh.
or something like that.
See,
And
I thought the film studio stuff was really cool. I remember loving that part of the
the
movie.
only thing I hated about that was it was like, so to break it down, it's like the characters who were playing the characters in the movies had like 3 names. It
Yeah,
was their real actor or actress's name, then the character they played, then the character they were playing in the Stab movie. I'm like,
yeah.
why do they have 2 names? I don't
See,
know who any
yeah.
of these people are. They're all brand new. I haven't gotten to know them, but now I've got 2 names that I have to juggle between the two of them.
Yeah, I think my biggest problem with a lot of the characters in Scream 3 is they were so underdeveloped. You knew none of them were the killer. There was no way any of them could have been. I mean, it was like Scream 2 to a more extreme level where the complexity was just sort of chipped away. Um, and there's not been I think in the movies there hasn't been a Billy and Stu. There hasn't been one since the originals.
Hmm.
No
Nope.
one's lived up to that. I think Kieran and Piper did personally. I think they were equal in their greatness, but I do not think that the movies had a killer reveal as good as that one.
Nope.
And Romans was terrible. I mean, the
No.
fourth one was kind of good, but yeah, it wasn't as good still. And the second one
The,
was,
the
mm,
fourth one, my problem with her was her motive. She had a motive, but it was such a stupid motive that it was just
same.
like, it was such like I guarantee you're not gonna like the word I'm about to use. It was such a millennial motive. I want
You're
to
a
be famous
millennial,
online.
aren't you?
No, I shouldn't be. I
Oh
hope not.
shit. Are you in
Well, I
your
don't know.
30s?
I'm 32.
Yeah, I swear you're a millennial.
I probably am. I don't know.
I'm
Probably.
I'm not a millennial, so I'm not offended.
Oh god. But it was such like a it
Hmm.
was such a mid 2000s thing to want. Oh, I want to be famous because I survived not getting killed. It's like, what? It
Yeah.
was hers was her reveal was better than Roman's, but her motive was way dumber, I thought.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think I prefer Billy and Stu's whole we don't have a motive. I don't know why they started to introduce these complex reasonings like, oh, you killed my son, I'm gonna kill you. Oh, your mother denied me. Oh, I want fame. I like they go back to basics. Billy and Stu was just, I don't really like you. I want to
Well,
kill.
Billy's and Stu, what I liked about Billy's and Stu's that sets them apart from the rest was they wanted to scare her also.
Yeah, that was a huge
With
part of it.
with Billy's mom and Roman, what reason did they have to scare her? They just wanted this girl dead in as revenge.
That's
Billy
why I
and
don't think.
Stu did it. Yeah, Billy and Stu did it because they're like, we're gonna terrify the shit out of this girl before we kill her, and then we're gonna set her dad up as the patsy.
Yeah, they had a whole plan in place. Roman, I do not think he could have orchestrated Scream 1. I don't think that's in character for him. From what we saw of Roman, or one, Billy manipulated Stu. So are we to believe that Roman manipulated Billy and then Billy manipulated Stu? I don't think the food chain would have worked that way. If anything, Billy's more likely to have manipulated someone like Roman.
Hmm.
If you'd said something like, "Oh, Billy came to me and he told me that your mother was my mother," if if you went ahead and said Billy was orchestrating the whole thing just because he wanted to scare Sydney, sure, and he manipulated Roman, but I think having Roman as the head honcho of the entire thing did not make sense. he's not convincing enough, and I don't see how he would have known Billy or Stu.
The problem is they wanted to do the trope of someone from the past is introduced in the third one,
That should have been
but
Dewey then.
that's what I'm saying. They did it wrong though, because it's like you can introduce. They did the whole someone from the past.
Mhm.
I was there from the beginning, but it's like you're not, like you just said, Roman. You're not smart enough to have done this.
No, and I mean, like, how would he have met Billy and Stu? That's
Yeah,
what
what
I
did he do?
don't
Just
get.
he randomly just how did he find out the whole story? I mean,
Yeah.
the first one came out in what, 95? The internet wasn't that big or famous or as widely available as it is now. So he would have had to what? He scoured newspapers for this information? Why? Why? Yeah, that's exactly like you said. It was a stupid retcon because it just doesn't, it's a good idea, but it doesn't make sense.
No, because you're supposed to believe that he would have just walked up to two high school kids and went, "Hey, I know you. You are friends with this girl. Let's kill her." And then what if they just went, oh, "What the fuck, dude? No."
Yeah, what if they just randomly went and got the cops and was like, "Hey, this guy who looks like a pedophile just approached us at school and said he wants us to help kill this girl we know."
Yeah, I mean, it's such a ballsy plan. It doesn't make sense. And then he flukes out and happens to get the two kids that would have done it. And then we're supposed to believe either he did it on, completely randomly, or he watched them and he was that clever he could have picked them out from the crowd. I don't see it. He's not an
No.
analyst. He's not a behavioral.
He was a film director.
Yeah, you don't.
He wasn't like a private eye or something, and you can't
Exactly.
hire a private eye. Why would he hire a private eye for that kind of thing?
So I mean, I'd give it 1 star. What would you give all the movies?
Oh, I would definitely, one is definitely a solid 5 out of 5, 10 out
Mm-hmm.
of 10, whatever you want to say it.
100 out of
It's a
100.
great movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, one is just one. It's a classic. I know
yeah.
there's some people out there who are just like, oh, it's not that good. Well, to each their own. Personally, I think it's a great film. I thought it was extremely
Mm-hmm.
clever. I thought it was smart. Easily the best of all four movies.
Yeah.
No questions, no debates. Two, while definitely not as strong, I'd go with a solid 7 out of 10
Mm-hmm.
or a 3 out of 5, whatever you want to say. It's not as strong, but I still get some enjoyment out of it. Like I said, I love the intro in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Uh, and those little tidbits here and there I thought were interesting.
Yeah.
Three just completely shit the bed and fell apart. And for me, it's I'll go a 1.5 star because
Oh, controversial.
there I broke the mold. But just because there are some elements to the film I enjoy seeing, as a film
Mhm.
overall, it doesn't work. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And introducing the sci-fi aspects, just it didn't kill it, but it took away the realism and the actual, like, there's no way I can be afraid of a killer who has a machine that can basically imitate anyone's voice that they want to. I mean,
Yeah,
that
that's
just immediately yanks me into this is just a science fiction film.
yeah, I mean, if it's a killer who, modifies his phone voice over the phone, that's a little out there at the time of Scream 1 being made, but I could believe it. There's ways you could do it. Um, So, it's the way they lured their victims was creepy, the way they killed them was creepy. It was terrifying because it was so believable. Scream 2, yeah, the same sort of thing. Scream 3 just, yeah, it felt like they delved into the whole supernatural sort of style that other slashers do, and
You
I'm
know,
not a huge fan of that.
that's one thing we didn't mention this whole time. The voice of the killer.
hmm That's
Just
the best part.
classic. Just absolute, that voice, just pure classic in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right up there with, I mean, that's what puts Ghostface right up there with all the greats.
Oh
In
yeah.
my opinion, was just, it's the voice that helped add to it
If you
because it's
had
just,
Billy or
oh,
Stu speaking without that, you would have known who they were. You, it wouldn't have worked, I don't think. It would have been like seeing Vader with the original voice. I don't think it could have worked. I'm really glad they went with that. The TV series emulated it really well. But I mean, I'd probably go Scream 1 5 stars, Scream 2 3.5 to 4 stars, and then I'd probably give Scream 3 a 1 star if I'm being generous.
hmm
That's generous.
That's
Can I
you
give
on
it a
good day.
0? It ruined the whole fucking trilogy. It shouldn't exist. That's how fucking low of a movie it is.
I don't know. I think 4 basically ignored it, so who knows?
It did, but it didn't really need to talk about any past movies.
Yeah. Well,
But
we'll get to 4. We'll get to 4 in the TV shows in another episode after we actually get a chance to
yeah.
watch them because the TV show, I'll just skim through it just so I can get reminded. But who knows? Knowing me, I'll probably wind up watching the whole thing because I love season 1 and 2. I remember when they were announced, I was like, are you joking? I was like, how do you make a Scream show? And then I looked at what channel it was going to be on. I was like, MTV? Okay, it's done. It's done. And then it popped on Netflix, season 1. And I'm like, I guess I'll give it a go. And bam, I was hooked
Yeah,
right at
that
first
was the same
episode.
sort of thing for me. I mean, they took Scream 3 and they took Scream 1 and they put them together. They ignored Scream 2, thank fuck. So basically, you got a story where Billy and Gail slash Roman were lovers and went on a killing spree. To me, that is brilliant. And we not only, like, when you rewatch it now, you basically get to see Billy slowly wooing a girl and seducing her, knowing fully well what his plans are. He kills her previous boyfriend, so he has an opportunity to manipulate and get close to her. It gets so much more twisted on a rewatch, and I think it was so brilliantly written and brilliantly done. They redeemed Scream 3. How the fuck? Never thought I'd see that. So I'm really excited to talk about that because I think the big reason I want to talk about Scream 4 and the TV series in a separate episode together, rather than doing Scream 4 here, and just briefly touch on them here, is because they're the modern versions of Scream.
Definitely.
Four's in the same series, but they did it so late after 3.
Yeah, because the first 3 formed a nice little trilogy. They,
Yeah.
literally the end of 3, they put a bow on it. They were just like,
Yeah.
that's it. It's over, everyone. We got our trilogy. It's done. We're moving on.
Yeah. And
And then
years
4
passed.
and then 4 came out, did its thing, and then the TV series came out and ended even worse than 3 did, I think.
The Halloween special did. But
That's what I'm saying. The
Yeah.
Halloween special was the last time we see the TV show characters, and that was just I don't think I've ever been so angry at
But the thing is, I think,
quote-unquote finale. It was
yeah. Unlike Scream 3, though, I think you can watch Scream season 1 to 2, and they feel like they tied up nicely.
The
So you
problem
don't
with the
need
Halloween special. The problem with the Halloween special is even if they ever did continue it, which they can't, it's been too
It would
long
have been
now.
butchered.
Even if they ever did, they did something so stupid in the Halloween special that ruined the very end of season 2. So it was like, are we just going to pretend the Halloween special never existed, which it shouldn't exist?
Yeah.
But well, we'll cover that next time.
Plus, I think doing a whole movie sort of thing where you have a new killer in between. Because the thing I loved about series 1 and 2 is it was like Scream 1 and 3, which I'll praise. You have killers that are connected. The third killer was always in the first movie, and it's not like, oh, I'm a copycat, I'm another copycat, I'm another copycat, or it's like Jason, I've come back, I've come back, I've come back. It was, it's a continuation. I love that. Whereas the Halloween special was just, it was like Scream 2. It was a filler, and I didn't like that.
And it was a worse filler.
Yeah.
Well, and with the TV show, my last thoughts on the TV show before we cover it in its entirety at some point was we just, obviously being a TV show, you get more complex characters in the TV show than you can in a movie. And I just think the TV show had some just amazingly deep characters, specifically Noah and Audrey, like you said.
Oh,
earlier.
yeah. I love those
And
two.
even to an extent, I think Brooke was an amazing character. The things that poor girl went through, I thought were far worse than almost anyone else. So it's
They took Tatum and ran with it.
It's like, yeah, they took Tatum and they integrated her into the series more, like you said earlier. If they'd known Scream was going to go on to 1, 2, and 3, they probably would have kept Tatum around. So it's like that's what they did with Brooke.
You could feel they wanted to keep her around with Scream 2 because they basically there was a surrogate character. She was a lot different, but it was the best friend role being filled again. I think if they'd known, they would have just kept Tatum and done it again. Which
Definitely.
because Wes Craven did handle the TV series, so, he was he was going back, he was fixing all his flaws, he was making sure that it was better than the movies in terms of telling a cohesive story. So I think it worked out. I'd say. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think the third movie just ruined a perfectly good trilogy, and Scream TV series ended in the same way.
They always end with a shit. They no, it's like no franchise can ever end on a high note for one
No.
reason. Oh, it was great. People loved it. They want more. No, they don't. They loved it because it ended perfectly. Stop.
Yeah, it's annoying. Oh well. Thank you for watching. If you want to see us geek out over more stuff, and me and Chad love doing horror, so I think there'll be more
Oh,
horror on the channel. I mean, we've done Us and
definitely.
Scream now, but yeah, if you want more stuff like this, subscribe. We do have a Facebook page now where you can keep up to date on stuff, behind the scenes stuff, news updates, all that good stuff. So that'll be on the Facebook page. We can put that in the description below, and yeah, follow us there, subscribe, and hope we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Talk to you guys soon.